The arrival on Xandar Prime, human diplomat Vincent Mitchell stepped out of the sleek silver shuttle, his polished shoes clinking softly on the iridescent stones of Xandar Prime's Royal Plaza. The vibrant bioluminescent lights flickered across the vast alien cityscape, casting a kaleidoscope of colors that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the planet itself. Towering spires of living crystal stretched toward the heavens, their surfaces shimmering with 1,000 hues as they reflected the light of the setting sun. Vincent, seasoned and composed, had prepared for countless first contact missions, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to witness. As he approached the grand entrance of the royal palace, flanked by a detachment of human and alien security personnel, the towering reptilian Shellick greeted him. Their deep emerald scales glistened under the lights, each of them standing at least 2 feet taller than any human. They moved with a grace that belied their size, their long tails swishing behind them as they bowed deeply in unison. Vincent returned the bow, albeit awkwardly, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the grandeur of the moment. The doors of the palace opened with a soft whoosh, revealing a grand hall that seemed to stretch on forever, its walls lined with intricate tapestries depicting the rich history of the Shellick civilization. The honor guard led Vincent through the hall, their footsteps echoing softly against the polished stone floor. As they neared the center of the chamber, Vincent could see the Shellick sovereign waiting for him, his jeweled crest gleaming under the bioluminescent lights. The sovereign's presence was commanding, his eyes sharp and intelligent as they locked onto Vincent. With a sweeping gesture, the sovereign signaled the start of the formal greeting. To Vincent's utter shock, the entire assembly of Shellick officials, dignitaries, and military personnel dropped to their knees, pressing their foreheads to the ornate floor in a gesture of deep reverence. Vincent nearly tripped over his own feet as he came to a halt, his mind reeling at the surreal sight. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined such a display of submission, especially from a species as proud and advanced as the shellac. Paralyzed by confusion, Vincent's diplomatic training kicked in, urging him to maintain his composure despite the cold sweat that prickled along his spine. Everything had been going smoothly until this moment. The arrival at Xandar Prime, the formal greeting by the honor guard, the confident stride into the breathtaking bioluminescent lit chamber, everything had followed the protocol for this monumental first contact. But now, Vincent faced a situation that was entirely outside his experience, with the fate of humanity's relationship with this advanced species hanging in the balance. The Shellick sovereign himself knelt before Vincent, his jeweled crest glinting in the soft light as he intoned with a voice that resonated through the chamber. All hail and glory to the emissary of Terra, herald of our ascension. Vincent blinked, his mind racing to comprehend the implications of those words. The shellac believed humanity to be the gods of their ancient myths, descended from the stars to uplift their civilization with wondrous technology. Vincent's first instinct was to correct this notion, to gently explain that he was merely a representative of Earth, not a deity. But as he opened his mouth to speak, the shellac pressed themselves lower, their prayers growing frantic, tumbling from their lips like a cascade of reverence. Crap, Vincent thought, realizing the gravity of the situation. Okay, new approach needed. The weight of the moment crashed over him like a tsunami. A single misspoken word here could alter the trajectory of this species for good or ill. Earth could gain unimaginable influence and equally unimaginable culpability, depending on how Vincent handled this misunderstanding. He would have to maneuver with all the delicacy of neurosurgery to avoid damaging this nascent relationship. With no graceful option available, Vincent resigned himself to playing along for now. He could only hope to gradually lead the shellac to a more reasoned understanding of humanity's role. Yet, as he fixed a benevolent smile on his face, a disconcerting thought wormed its way into his mind. Could there be some nucleus of truth in these outlandish beliefs about humanity's role in the shellac past? The shellac emissaries launched into the first of 900 odes to humanity's virtues, their voices rising and falling in a hypnotic rhythm that filled the grand hall. Vincent fought to maintain his diplomatic smile, even as the crick in his neck grew more pronounced with each passing minute. Just as he thought he might scream from the monotony, a sudden commotion erupted at the rear of the hall. The sea of kneeling shellac parted, revealing a tall figure striding forward with an air of imperious authority. High Counselor Zoran Krell, his bioluminescent markings flashing in agitation, fixed Vincent with a piercing glare. "Emissary of Terra," Krell demanded, his voice sharp and accusatory. "Why do you refuse to accept the reverence that is your due as one of the sacred progenitors?" Vincent straightened, meeting Krell's stare with a diplomatic smile. "High Counselor Krell, I am honored by your people's welcome. However, as a representative of Earth, I am bound by certain protocols that require me to engage with your people as equals. I mean no disrespect to your traditions." Krell's tail lashed in consternation, his confusion and irritation evident. "Perhaps we could retire to a more private setting to discuss the nuances of human culture and the true nature of my mission," Vincent quickly suggested, trying to defuse the situation. Krell begrudgingly agreed, but insisted on maintaining the sacred forms, much to Vincent's chagrin. This meant shuffling along on his knees beside the human as they made their way to a conference chamber. Vincent could barely stifle a chuckle as he imagined how this scene would be received back on Earth. Once in private, Vincent tried again to convince Krell of his non-divine status. "High Counselor, I assure you I am but a mortal man. Humanity desires a relationship of mutual understanding with the shellac, not one of worship." Krell scoffed, his neck frill flaring in irritation. "The shellac way is sacred and inviolable, emissary. It is not for you to question." As the meeting grew increasingly tense, Krell began to openly doubt Vincent's motives. When the frustrated human stood and began to pace, Krell misinterpreted it as a demand for more supplication. The High Counselor prostrated himself even further, refusing to rise until granted permission. Vincent pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling a migraine brewing. "Just what have I gotten myself into?" he thought. At that moment, a chime at the door heralded a new arrival. Lissa Tal, a young shellac xenoanthropologist serving as the sovereign's aide, entered the room with a simple bow rather than kneeling. "Emissary Mitchell, High Counselor Krell, may I join your discussion?" Lissa asked politely. "I have been studying human culture in preparation for your delegation's arrival. Perhaps I can help bridge our cultural divide." Vincent accepted with palpable relief, grateful for a voice of reason. Krell spluttered at Lissa's perceived insolence, but allowed her to stay at Vincent's insistence. As Lissa engaged Vincent in thoughtful conversation, her open-minded curiosity shone through. Vincent felt a flicker of hope at finding a potential ally in this complex situation. However, he also noticed Krell glaring at Lissa, outrage smoldering in his eyes as he muttered about the corrupting influence of the humans on shellac tradition. The meeting concluded with Krell stiffly informing Vincent of a grand state banquet planned in the human delegation's honor. Representatives from all shellac clans would be attending. Vincent recognized the crucial opportunity to make a good impression and win support. But as he glanced between the seething Krell and the pensive Lissa, he sensed the cracks forming in shellac society. Their internal strife could prove an even greater challenge than the cultural misunderstandings themselves. Forging understanding between the two species while navigating the minefield of shellac politics and religion would be a true test of Vincent's diplomatic mettle. As Vincent steeled himself for the banquet, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was embarking on a journey far more perilous than he'd ever anticipated. The ornate invitation in his hand felt as heavy as the burden of an entire civilization's future. He could only pray he was up to the task. The diplomatic banquet. The grand banquet hall was a marvel of shellac architecture, its vaulted ceilings adorned with shimmering tapestries that depicted scenes from ancient myths and legends. The bioluminescent flora embedded in the walls cast a soft, ambient glow, giving the room an otherworldly feel. The tables were set with the finest shellac delicacies, each dish a work of art, carefully arranged to please the eye as much as the palate. Vincent's shoulders tensed as he entered the hall, the weight of an entire civilization's expectations pressing down on him. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, a ripple of movement swept through the assembled shellac. In unison, they dropped to their knees, foreheads touching the polished floor. He suppressed a sigh, forcing his face into a mask of benevolent serenity as he made his way to the head table. The sovereign awaited him, gesturing to an ornate chair at his right hand. As Vincent took his seat, he caught Lissa's eye across the room. She offered an apologetic half-smile, a flicker of understanding passing between them. High Counselor Krell, seated further down the table, watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. His tail twitched in barely concealed satisfaction at the spectacle of devotion surrounding the human diplomat. "Emissary," the sovereign's resonant voice drew Vincent's attention. "We are most honored by your presence. Perhaps you might enlighten us on the wonders your people have achieved since departing our world." Vincent seized the opening, eager to steer the conversation toward more comfortable ground. "Your Eminence, humanity has indeed made great strides in technology and exploration. We are eager to share our knowledge and engage in mutually beneficial exchanges with the shellac." The sovereign's head crest flared with interest. "Fascinating. Our scientists have long dreamed of—" A scraping of chairs interrupted him as a cluster of elaborately adorned shellac approached the table. They prostrated themselves before Vincent, the lead alien's jeweled robes pooling around him. "Oh, great emissary," the shellac intoned, "permit this humble servant to offer the ode of celestial glory passed down through 1,000 generations." Vincent's smile grew strained. "You are most kind, however. Perhaps we could continue our discussion of scientific cooperation." His words fell on deaf ears as the shellac launched into a lengthy recitation. Vincent's gaze drifted across the hall, where Lissa sat engaged in animated conversation with a group of younger nobles. To his surprise, they remained seated, leaning in to catch her words over the din of the banquet. Krell followed Vincent's line of sight, his expression darkening. The High Counselor's claws tapped an agitated rhythm against the table as the night wore on. A steady stream of supplicants approached Vincent, each insistent on delivering their own praises. They refused to rise until acknowledged, the constant interruptions grating on Vincent's nerves. His diplomatic mask slipped with each scrape of a chair and rustle of robes. Finally, as the banquet wound down, the sovereign turned to Vincent with an unexpected proposition. "Emissary, we would be most honored if you would attend a sacred ritual in the Temple of the Progenitors tomorrow. Your presence would bring great meaning to our people." Before Vincent could formulate a response, Krell interjected, "Indeed, Your Eminence, and surely the emissary would not object to demonstrating his divine power at the start of the ceremony." Vincent's mind raced. "I would be honored to attend," he managed, acutely aware of the expectations now placed upon him. The next morning found Vincent huddled with his team, desperately seeking a solution that wouldn't involve outright deception. A knock at the door revealed Lissa, her expression grave. "Emissary Mitchell," she said, "I bring troubling news. High Counselor Krell has been spreading discontent among the more traditional clans. He suggests that if you truly were the gods of legend, you would embrace our worship without hesitation." Vincent's stomach churned as he entered the temple, colossal statues of unmistakably human figures looming overhead. Artifacts of clearly Terran origin sat enshrined on pedestals, revered as holy relics. The scope of the shellac belief system struck him like a physical blow. As the ritual commenced, Vincent found himself ushered onto a central dais. The sovereign and assembled worshippers formed concentric circles around him, sinking to their knees in expectant silence. With a silent prayer to whatever real deities might be listening, Vincent activated the holographic projector concealed in his palm. A gasp rippled through the crowd as swirling galaxies and iridescent nebulae blossomed overhead. The shellac prostrated themselves further, awed whispers filling the air. For a moment, Vincent dared to hope, but then Krell's voice cut through the reverent hush. "Deception!" he cried, leaping to his feet. "This is not the power of the progenitors, but mere technological trickery. The humans seek to mislead us." Confusion and anger spread through the gathered shellac like wildfire. Vincent opened his mouth to speak, but his words were drowned out by a deafening boom. The temple doors burst open, admitting a group of armed Shellick, their faces painted with unfamiliar symbols, weapons trained on Vincent, Krell, and the Sovereign alike. "Death to the false gods!" their leader bellowed. "The true faith must be restored." In an instant, the temple descended into chaos. Vincent's mind raced, searching for a way to defuse the powder keg he now found himself at the center of. As the armed zealots advanced, he realized that the fate of two civilizations now rested on his next move. The chaos erupted in an instant. Blaster fire scorched the air, shattering stone and sending debris flying. Vincent's instincts kicked in as he dove for cover, yanking the Sovereign down with him behind a massive statue. Lissa scrambled after them, her eyes wide with shock. "This way!" Vincent shouted over the din, gesturing toward a side passage. They half ran, half crawled through the temple's winding corridors, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Vincent's security team unleashed suppressing fire with their stun weapons, buying precious seconds. They burst into an antechamber, the door hissing shut behind them. Vincent's breath caught as he took in the room's contents. Sleek terminals lined the walls, their designs unmistakably human despite their obvious age. Lissa's claws traced reverent patterns over a nearby console. "It's true," she breathed. "The progenitor gifts." "Not gifts," Vincent corrected gently, but definitely human. His mind raced, piecing together implications that threatened to upend everything. A thunderous boom shook the chamber. The rebels had breached the outer defenses. Vincent's security chief, a grizzled veteran named Roar, took up a defensive position by the door. "Sir," he growled, "we're out of options. Time to make a stand." But before Vincent could respond, Lissa stepped forward, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with dedication as she keyed open the chamber's comm system. "Brothers, sisters, hear me!" Her voice rang out, amplified throughout the temple. "I am Lissa Tal, keeper of the old ways. What you fight for is based on truth, but twisted by time and misunderstanding." She wove a compelling narrative, drawing on both Shellick legend and the hard evidence before them. As she spoke, the sounds of conflict beyond the door gradually subsided. "The humans did not create us," Lissa concluded, "but they gave us a gift far greater than godhood, the chance to forge our own destiny." A tense silence fell. Then slowly the chamber door slid open. The rebel leader stood framed in the entrance, weapon lowered but not holstered. "You speak with conviction, Lissa," he said, "but how can we be certain?" Vincent stepped forward, hands raised. "Because I can show you the truth, all of it. But first we need to get the Sovereign to safety." The rebel considered for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "You will be escorted to the palace. There you will face the judgment of the true prophets." As they emerged from the temple, Vincent saw the full scope of the insurrection. Smoke rose from multiple points across the city. In the distance, the spires of the royal palace stood resolute. The diplomats' mind whirled as they made their way through eerily empty streets. Centuries of human influence, technological gifts warped into religious doctrine, the magnitude of the situation threatened to overwhelm him. But as he glanced at Lissa and saw the quiet strength in her bearing, Vincent felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was still a chance to forge understanding from the ashes of shattered beliefs. The truth unveiled. The palace loomed before them, its gates opening to reveal a tense assembly of Shellick dignitaries. High Counselor Krell stood at their center, his expression a mask of barely restrained fury. Vincent took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. The time had come for the whole truth to be revealed. Vincent's voice rang out, clear and unwavering, as he addressed the assembled Shellick dignitaries. "For centuries, your people have venerated mine as gods, but the truth is far more complex and far more beautiful." He activated a holographic display, filling the air with images of ancient human explorers. These were not deities, but pioneers. They came to your world, saw its potential, and chose to nurture it. A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. Krell's eyes blazed with fury, but Vincent pressed on, revealing long-hidden records from the temple databanks. "We didn't create you," he explained, "but we did provide tools and knowledge to help your civilization flourish." Lissa stepped forward, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with conviction. "Our legends speak of divine gifts. Now we see they were acts of compassion from fellow beings." For a moment, hope blossomed, but as the implications sank in, unrest stirred among the gathered shellac. Whispers of blasphemy and deception grew into a discontented murmur. Krell seized the moment, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Do not be fooled by these charlatans! They seek to strip away our very identity." The next weeks passed in a haze of tense negotiations and public appearances. Vincent worked tirelessly to build trust, while Lissa advocated for a middle ground between tradition and progress. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered. It burst into the open at the tree-lighting festival, a cherished shellac tradition. Vincent stood before the towering bioluminescent sapling, its branches pulsing with ethereal light. "Today we celebrate not just shellac culture, but the bonds between our peoples," he began, but his words were cut short by a sudden hail of glowing projectiles. Sticky seed pods rained down, coating Vincent and his team in rapidly hardening resin. Panic erupted as the human delegation found themselves trapped, immobilized within translucent amber shells. Through the chaos strode Croyne, the rebel commander from the temple attack. His honor guard moved with practiced precision, their refusal to kneel a blatant challenge to custom. "Behold," Crowan's voice boomed across the square. "Your false gods helpless before us." He turned to the sovereign, eyes burning with zealotry. "Reinstate the old ways, or face the consequences of your heresy." Guards swarmed to apprehend Croyne, but the damage was done. The crowd, once festive, devolved into a seething mass. Protesters surged forward, hands clawing at the immobilized humans. In the days that followed, Krell's influence grew like a cancer. Merchant guilds ground commerce to a halt. Universities erupted in protests. Violence flared in city squares as traditionalists clashed with reformers. Vincent and his team found themselves virtual prisoners, dependent on Lissa and a dwindling circle of allies for protection. She smuggled them through secret passages as angry mobs besieged their compound, risking her life to shield the humans from increasingly bold assassination attempts. The kingdom teetered on the brink of civil war. In a final, daring plan, the sovereign made her way to Vincent's safe house. The proud shellac ruler dropped to her knees before the human diplomat. "Please," she pleaded, her crest drooping with exhaustion, "help us find a way forward." Vincent hesitated, acutely aware of the symbolism, but with Lissa's encouraging nod, he accepted the gesture and agreed to peace talks. The conference chamber crackled with tension. Hardline generals glowered across the table at Vincent's team. Krell paced like a caged predator, spitting venom with every word. "You speak of honor," he snarled at Vincent. "Where is the honor in abandoning our sacred traditions?" Vincent took a steadying breath. "True honor lies in seeking wisdom, in growing beyond—" Krell's roar cut him off. "Enough! Death to the false gods and their puppets!" The room exploded into violence. Vincent and his team barely escaped, Lissa leading them through hidden tunnels as the sounds of battle echoed behind them. Later, huddled in yet another safe house, Lissa delivered the grim news. "Krell has declared the sovereign illegitimate. He controls most of the military now." Vincent's shoulders sagged. "Then it's over. We have to leave before we make things worse." But Lissa's eyes gleamed with determination. "Not yet. I have one last idea, but you'll have to trust me." Hours later, Vincent found himself in a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the city. General Vaz's imposing figure emerged from the shadows, his bioluminescent markings pulsing with cautious curiosity. "Human," he rumbled, "you claim to have truth. Show me." Vincent activated his holographic projector. Images flickered to life. Human explorers of centuries past, their ships touching down on shellac soil. "We were never gods," Vincent explained, "just fellow travelers, sharing knowledge." Vez's eyes narrowed as he absorbed the information. "And Krell knows this?" he demanded. Lissa nodded. "He's deliberately twisting the truth, using our faith to consolidate power. The general's markings flashed with scarcely controlled anger. "Then we act," he growled. "My clan will support you. We strike before Krell plunges us into full civil war." As Vez departed to rally his forces, Lissa turned to Vincent. "Now for our part. We're going to the Xeno-Archaeological University." They moved through the shadows of the city, dodging patrols of Krell's militia. The university loomed ahead, its ancient spires a testament to centuries of accumulated knowledge. "The central data core," Lissa explained as they slipped inside. "If we can broadcast the full human archives, Krell's lies will crumble." Alarms blared as they fought their way to the core. Vincent's security team held off waves of attackers while Lissa's fingers flew across alien interfaces. "Uploading now!" she shouted over the din of battle. Across the city, screens flickered to life. The truth of humanity's first contact with the Shellac spread like wildfire through the information networks. Citizens emerged from their homes, staring at public displays in wonder and confusion. In the palace, Krell snarled orders at his dwindling loyalists. "Shut it down!" he roared. "This is human propaganda!" But Vez's armored columns were already moving. Key districts fell under his control as the general's measured voice rang out. "People of Shellac, we have been deceived, but today we reclaim our true history." Vincent and Lissa raced toward the palace, dodging pockets of street fighting. They arrived to find Krell cornered, the sovereign safely protected by Vez's honor guard. "It's over, Krell," Lissa declared, her markings pulsing with righteous anger. The hardliner's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. "You've doomed us all," he snarled. "Without faith, what are we?" "Free," the sovereign answered, stepping forward. "Free to forge our own path." As the sun rose over the city, the last pockets of resistance surrendered. Vincent stood on a balcony overlooking the central square, watching as Shellac of all factions mingled, their bioluminescence a swirling sea of conflicted emotions. The sovereign approached, her bearing regal despite the chaos of recent days.